Well, let me just say how delighted I am to be here and how impressed I was coming into the building to see so many of you. I know that we have a bit of a confluence of scheduling challenges that have happened this morning, so I really want to thank Dean for that terrific presentation and for letting me jump in real quick. I have to get to a secretary's meeting at 9:45, so that's part of the reason why there was a little bit of a pressure. But my hope and expectation is that as soon as I'm out of the way, you guys can get back to the regularly scheduled program and be able to take the time to hear about some of these innovations as Dean was presenting. But let me say that I am so proud of the work that the Center for Industrial-Based Management and Supply Chain have done to pull this inaugural summit off, to bring you all together with us to have conversations like this. ASPR's industrial-based management and supply chain work was born out of the initial supply chain pinches the country felt in March 2020. I know you all felt it too when the whole world needed the exact same things at the exact same times, and many of those things were manufactured somewhere else. Using emergency supplemental appropriations, we've built a program to ensure that we have personal protective equipment and critical supplies manufactured in the United States moving forward. And this work is housed in our Center for IBMSC. In working with the private sector to build these capabilities in the U.S., through the hard work of the team that you've been starting to meet this morning, we have focused our efforts on bringing domestic production capacity to the U.S., so we will no longer have to rely so heavily on goods manufactured in other parts of the world as we did in 2020. And it took, as many of you know, years, 50 years, we hear, for much of the pharmaceutical supply chain to leave our shores. And it will take several years, significant investment, and tremendous patience for it to return. But what we are committing to you here today is that we are in it for the long haul, and we'll exercise that patience to work with you as our partners to get this industry reestablished. And we've taken the first steps, as I mentioned, to expand this domestic industrial base for PPE and other critical medical supplies. And we did that with the COVID dollars that we received. It was extraordinarily intentional that Congress gave us funding explicitly for this effort. And we are hopeful, though, now that those COVID dollars are in the process, many of them are being rescinded, as you all know, through recent budget negotiations that have been happening on the Hill. And because we've spent them, we are hopeful that Congress, as we move away from supplemental dollars, will invest in the same way in our annual budget. And with those supplemental dollars, though, I want to take a step back and give you a picture of what we've done. So we've invested $17 billion, which is absolutely remarkable. And these investments are starting to pay off. However, $17 billion in the times of COVID went and was able to create significant capacity that we needed in certain places, but we would like to be able to continue to invest as we continue to see shortages pop up. But with those initial investments, we've expanded the country's domestic manufacturing infrastructure, supporting things like the production of over 690 million N95 respirators and 531 million surgical masks per year. But we are just beginning this work, as I said, and we're going to need patience. You're going to need to be patient as we double down to try to get many of those initial investments mature and established, and then look for places where we can continue to make new investments. So we're just beginning this work, and we're pleased that Congress, again, in this time of budget austerity, when we finally got an FY24 budget a couple of weeks ago, Congress saw to it to give us $10 million for this work. Now, $10 million compared to the $17 billion we've spent isn't a lot, but what it signaled to me, and I hope it signals to you, is that Congress understands the importance of this and they're not willing to let it go. Another option would have been not to include IBMSC at all. But in a time in which they were not giving new money to new ventures because of budget austerity, this effort got $10 million. And you'll hear throughout the day the work that we're going to do with that $10 million to continue to get our foothold here in this space and work to make sure it's more in the coming years. We've asked for, in the President's FY25 budget, $95 million. And we're going to work to show that we have earned that. And again, $95 million is not the same as $17 billion. But what these initial investments do, while they don't give us a ton of room to bring in new projects, it does give us the funding that we need to manage and give oversight to many of you who we have already invested in, to make sure that we can be good caretakers of the work that's happening now with the projects that were started with COVID dollars, and then continue to build towards additional investments as the money comes in the places that we need. Now, we work closely with FDA, as you all know, in the shortages work that we're seeing, and they have lists of, you know, over 100 drugs that are in shortage. Not all of those are going to fit in to our mission space. But the ones that do, particularly the APIs and the key starting materials, those building blocks that work both to help manufacture the drugs that are in our mission space and the emergency preparedness response work that we do, but also in the other critical mission spaces that FDA is looking out for, the oncology drugs, the diabetes treatments. Those are ones that don't really fall into the work that we do, but if we can work together and make sure that we're getting our investments so they can be as flexible as possible, we'll be able to support some of what the country needs in other spaces. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge another important part of our mission, and that's our Defense Production Act authorities. The Secretary has the ability to priority rate key materials and supplies within the supply chain to support the work that we're doing, that you're doing, when it's called into question for the national security, for the benefit of the national security. So he has delegated that Defense Production Authorities to us in ASPR. So we have an office within IBMSC that manages that for us. And that's an important thing for you to be aware of as you're thinking about places where we can partner, how we can continue to move and expand the investments that we have. And when we start making new investments, where those go, you know that we have this extra tool in our pocket, which we used many times during COVID and will intend to use should this ever impact the defense or national security of the country. We have the ability to make sure that you all have the supplies that you need in the supply chain that, while we're continuing to build, still has the potential to be pinched in the coming years. Anyway, you are a vital part of the work that we're doing. I'm so pleased that you're here. I'm delighted that IBMSC has created this space for us to learn from you, for you to learn from us, and I really am looking forward to getting a readout from Arlene and from Wayland about how these next couple of days go. I'm disappointed that I'm going to head out now to the meeting with the Secretary. I was hoping to be able to have more of a conversation with you all, but I am around, and if I can be helpful in the coming days, please let me know. My biggest message to you is that you have our commitment. This is going to take time. This is going to take additional funds. This is going to take patience, but we are committed. And we're really looking forward to doing this work with you all. So with that, Arlene, let me turn it back to you. Thank you for what you all are doing to make sure today is a success.